Test, test, prova, prova. Okay. Can you hear me? Okay, I'm continuing talking, and today's talk will be about customizing the backend charm. Can you hear me? It's fine. Basso, basso, alto. Okay? Good. Voilà. Hello? Can you hear me? Yes? Okay, thank you. Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining to this talk. Today we will talk about how to customize the backend. And before starting, I would like to introduce myself with a quote. Disclaimer is a bold one. Yeah. And she is right sometimes, who knows. I have a lot of other quotes, but those ones are not very interesting. We will skip them. But talking about the design team. So, what do we do in R&D, design team? We mock up new design, of course, like the new backend you saw during the presentation of Fabian. We code the visuals 99% of the times. Sometimes the developer can go through directly to the finalizing stage, let's say, but mostly all the time we code the design. Then we maintain and improve the CSS bundles. And we also provide support for the other R&D teams. So let's move forward. Today we will talk about how to customize the web client and much more. But why you want to do that? We did it, so it's perfect. You should not have the need to customize that. But actually, there may be specific needs, like for example, readability. If you are coding for a client that have specific needs, maybe they're working on tablets in a very difficult light environment, so you need to increase the contrast, for example. Or another reason may be accessibility, if you have to target a specific audience. Or maybe just because you want to learn how Odoo works. So if you have any question during the talk, you can use the QR code. I suggest you to use the browser tabs because I will show you many other QR codes. So you can take this one and let's jump in. So without making things too difficult, let's try with the faster and obvious approach when it comes about customization of a user interface. We have pop. Okay, so we have Odoo already loaded here. And let's assume that we want to change the color of this button here. So what we can do is to inspect the code, and we see that this button has 3 classes. One is button, is the shared class across all the buttons in this interface. Then we have primary, and then we have our command button new, but this is very specific. Okay, so what we want to do is to change the background color of this button. Very easy. We open our text editor. Button primary is already there. Thank you, Stefano, from yesterday evening. So I just add the background color blue. And refresh the page. And thanks to the power of CSS, is done. Magic. It's one line, it works, it's perfect. I mean, probably it's not worth to investigate further, right? So we can say that the talk is finished. Thank you. And you can use the but there are some cases we should investigate better, probably. So the first thing that came to my mind is that when I hover this button, it becomes purple again. You do purple. But this is probably not a big issue, right? because we defined the first line that the background is blue, and we can define another line and make it darker when it's overed. 2 lines, not one, fair enough, but it's not a big deal. It's still maintainable, it's still readable, it's code that we can manage. But maybe there are other issues. Maybe someone tell us that if the button is primary, maybe also the alert should be primary. And then we have to handle other user cases, like, I don't know, the link color. In this case, for the link, we have to target the color property and not the background anymore. And then there are other cases we should handle, like the disable state. This is very tricky because it's hardcode and bootstrap, so we have to define not selector. And you can already see where this is going. We are handling just a few elements here and there, but we have more than 40 lines of code, and we are not even sure about if this system is fragile or no, because CSS is undoubtedly difficult to debug. But you spend a lot of time on that, you continue working on this code, you improve it, you receive feedbacks, and do your stuff, and hopefully everything works fine. Maybe you have a 300 line of CSS just to change some colors here and there, but it's mostly okay. And then this happened. There is a new version of Odoo, or maybe Bootstrap moved to PostScript or something else. There is innovation, changes, and this is normal. This is good actually, because new changes means a lot of time and new possibilities, new ways to improve your code, but you are stuck because you are still relying on a lot of CSS overrides that are difficult to maintain and that are difficult to scale, and it's difficult to move forward. So we need something smarter. If you are a CSS expert, you can take a nap. I will wake you up in a couple of minutes. But let's discuss about how the Bootstrap compilation process works. The first block is a block of Bootstrap variables. In these files, Bootstrap defines all the colors and the properties that then will be used to generate the user interface. You can use this square code to get the file that we use in the bundle. Those are Bootstrap default variables. So after that, all these variables pass to the Bootstrap computation block, let's say. That is where Bootstrap use all these variables and assign it to the right component. It creates all the user case, like the disable state, the over state, etc. And then you have the final result screen. This is how Bootstrap works. We are going from the bottom to the top in this case. So where do we need to inject our overrides? Because we want to change the color, we still want to make the bottom primary blue. The most obvious place could be in the middle. It makes perfectly sense, because Bootstrap defines the variables, we override them, and then Bootstrap compiles the rest. It's like putting a foot on a doorstep, you know? Let's see if it works. So let's assume that we have these Bootstrap variables that are default. We have foo that is green and bar that is a darker variation of foo. Then we inject our custom variables and we override foo that now becomes red. The result is not what we expected. Foo, indeed, an element that is using the foo variable becomes red, but bar remain green. Why? The reason is that some computations are already occurring at the variable definition level. So when our override take action, let's say, bar has already been defined. And so this is how it's used in the user interface. Maybe we can fix that. Maybe we can redefine bar in our custom overrides, but this will mean unnecessary variable overrides and reliable inheritance, and also there is the tag spot, because this place I showed you before is a very tight spot. You want Bootstrap to do its job in a clean way. You don't want to stay inside and change things. So we need something else. We need something that is predictable, that is consistent, that is easy to maintain, and is scalable, because we want to start maybe just changing the bottom primary, but in the future we want to change other stuff as well. Introducing default. Default is a standard CSS flag. CSS expert may wake up now. It looks like that. Basically, you define a variable, and then you add the default flag immediately afterward. And what happens is that the value is assigned only if the variable was previously undefined or null. It doesn't make a lot of sense right now, maybe if it's the each time you are dealing with default, but let's make an example. Actually, let's start by saying that all the Bootstrap variable comes with default by default, standard. So we first define our custom variable before calling Bootstrap. Is the first thing we do. We define foo that is red. Then we load the Bootstrap variables. Bootstrap tries to define foo as a green. Nice try. We already defined that. So foo is red, as we said before, and the bar now takes the new value of foo and becomes darker red. And this is exactly what we expect. In this way, we hacked the system, let's say, overriding only the variables that we need to change, and we kept all the logic of Bootstrap intact. Basically, we invalidate Bootstrap variables by defining them before that Bootstrap does it. And you know what? Odoo variables use default too. It means that when we override Bootstrap to get the Odoo design, we use default, and you can use default in your custom variables to overwrite what Odoo does. So this is how it looks at the end. We have your custom variables that are defined at the very beginning. Then we have Odoo variables that customize Bootstrap variables. At the end there is the Bootstrap computation and the final result on screen. Does it make sense? Okay. The one that follows is a very complicated technical scheme that shows you about our approach, and it's this one. So basically, Odoo prefers to use a default approach rather than CSS override. If you use default, you will be consistent with the way how we manage bundles in Odoo. And it applies in all the bundles. Meaning that when we designed posts, for example, we created our own variables that were overriding the Odoo variables, that were overriding the Bootstrap variables that at the end defined the result on screen for posts. And it's the same for the other modules. It's the same for a website, even if in that case it's a bit more tricky. Maybe if I have time I will explain why. And it's the same for the dark mode. We have the default Odoo variables that define bright, and when you check the toggle and you activate the dark mode, we define variables that override the default Odoo ones. If you're interested in dark mode, there will be another talk tomorrow from my colleague Crisant, and it will be about how to code, suggestions, tricks and tips about how to code your module for to be dark mode ready. Okay. So we are ready for a tutorial step by step. I will show you how to do that directly in the code, but first I would like to say how we achieved that. We did a huge refactoring for version 16, and as you can see, the visual result is not a lot different, but a lot of changes were made under the hood. We refactored the CSS of Odoo using extensively CSS variables, using a lot of utility classes, and we removed a lot on unnecessary custom code that was present in several modules. This helped us to reduce the footprint by a lot. It means streamline the code. Having a smaller code means also that is code easier to maintain. And we increase consistency, because when we applied, for example, the border class, we know what this border class is doing now. Before we had, I don't know, in each module we had specific classes to handle the border. Now we have only one class, and when we change the variable that assign the color of that border, using that class it will be applied in all the modules. So increase consistency, and it also reduces the development time, at least on a design side. As an example, we implemented dark mode in 2 weeks. I'm not counting the mock-up phase, the testing phase, the bug fix phase. I'm talking just about the applying the color on the web client and see how it works. It took more or less 2 weeks to fine-tune all the color. It is a very short time. And we refined the system for version 17, and it took more or less 1 week to choose the right color, let's say, for the milk design that is the new design for Odoo. Again, I'm not taking account testing, mock-upping, and having to deal with all the things you can imagine. So, we're ready for a step-by-step live demo. The first thing that you have to do if you think to customize the backend or any of the bundles is to create a module. Why? Because you want your code to be self-contained in a specific module that you can install, uninstall, upgrade, and you don't want to have files that could be maybe removed during the migration or during the upgrade of Odoo. So create a module. Here there is a QR code if you don't know how to do that. And let's do that. Actually, I already create a module. It's called XP23, and in my case it's a very simple module. There is just a manifest file with the normal things, so there is title, description, etc., and the assets part. So what I'm doing here is injecting a file containing variables just before pretend the primary variable assets. If you're not familiar with the bundles in Odoo, you can take this other QR code that is about how to manage assets and bundle in Odoo. So what I'm doing here is to prepend my variables that will be loaded before the variables of Odoo. And here there is my file. What I'm doing here is defining brand primary and the enterprise action color that are the variables that define the design for the color, for the primary elements like button primary and for the link color. So I uncommented this. I refresh. And now the button change. The over state is handled, the focus state is handled as well. I don't know if you can see that there. Also the link and the action color is different for the link too. So we did with 2 lines what we tried to do with the debatable result with the 40 line before. And this is very easy to maintain also, because if in the future Odoo change the name of the variable, you have just to change it here, or if you want to change the color, you can manage directly in your editor. I made some examples of what can be done using this approach. So this is Odoo default. I uncomment a set of variables definition that impact the grayscale, the primary colors, the secondary one, the web client background color, and the style of the buttons. I also change the fonts here, so I'm using Baskerville. Okay, here we are. So we have a totally different visual result, just changing a few CSS variables. I will comment this. I will show you another example. Again, changing the color and the font. My team is freaking out right now. No worries, guys. This is not a mock-up. This is just a test we are doing for the talk. Okay. And then we can do another test. With a different combination of color and fonts. Okay, this is mostly dark, let's say, dark mode. Okay, this is just to give you an example of what you can do just defining variables in Odoo, as long as you do that in the right way. Before I told you that using this approach you can customize virtually any bundle in Odoo. Everything is rendered on screen basically, and I will give you an example using the new app meeting rooms, because in my manifest file I inject another file in the meeting room variables. So let's go to the meeting room app. Okay, this is the bundle we are gonna change. Here what I will do is to uncomment some variables I defined before, containing several color variation. But something else that I'm doing is to overwrite the default dark variables that is in Bootstrap. Why? Because when we define our Odoo variables, we don't overwrite Bootstrap entirely. We kept some Bootstrap variables untouched, and you can do that here using the variable name of Bootstrap. And you have this difference in color. Is not very visible probably here in this splash screen, but when you go inside, you see it's very different. Okay, so this is how the system works. And some notes about the website, I told you before. So as said, you can customize any bundle in Odoo using this approach. Website is a bit trickier, because a website use the very same approach to customize the website when you use the editor. Meaning that when you change the font family in the editor, you're actually modifying a default Bootstrap variable. So if you use this system with website, it will work, but you may conflict with the options that the user chosen in the editor. So the best way to do that is to use the editor instead, of course. And if there are properties that you need to customize for your website, but are not used in the editor, like I don't know, the border radius of the input tag, for example. This kind of stuff, you can do that eventually using this approach. But you will have to be to take care in the future to check your code, because if we decide one day to expose that variable for the user to be customized using the editor, in that case you may get a conflict. And I think that it's all now. So thank you. Thanks. If you have any question, Louis will help us for the... Louis? Okay. There are questions?
We got a few questions from the attendees.
I can't hear. Come on. Yeah. I can't hear it.
We got a few questions from the attendees.
Yes.
First, someone asked where they can find the link to the code and the slides.
Okay. So the link to the code, I already shared the links of the file we are supposed to modify. So the primary variables of Bootstrap and the primary variables of Odoo. If you are referring specifically to this module, is a custom module that I made very fast, and you may not want to use it because, for example, I used some fonts that I have locally in my PC that are not on Google, for example, because I was not sure about the internet connection, so yeah, I did this trick. But if you want to, for example, import a Google font in your variable declaration, you can refer to in a web fonts here. We have a very useful mixin you can use to call a Google font, and then use it in your variable declaration. Okay.
Next question. Someone asks, how can you find the name of a variable from the front end?
From the front end, you can't. You need an understanding of how Bootstrap works. Everything we are discussing about, though, is very well documented either in Bootstrap or having a look in our source code. I think that is not so complicated. I can show you the primary variables in Odoo, for example. Everything is quite readable. I mean, theme text colors, you have the color variation for success, info, warning, and danger. And we try to stay as thick as possible with Bootstrap. So this color we change text color, info, text info, etc. So between Bootstrap documentation and the use we do of these variables in Odoo, I think that you can grasp how the system works.
You more or less already answered the next question, which was, is it documented somewhere?
Yes. You can refer to this link. I think that is very useful. So let me... Yeah, you will find a lot of information here. There is not written specifically which variable correspond to which element in the UI, but as soon as you manage an asset bundle, as I showed you before, injecting the variables in the right space, you can fail and trial and understand how the system works. Again, we use always the same nomenclatures, like in Bootstrap, so it's always about primary, secondary, sources, about, etc.
Next question. Is it possible to restrict the set of colors that one can choose on the website editor?
Restrict?
Just to a subset of colors.
I think that the question is about the palette controller that is in website. You know already the answer, yes, of course, everything is possible. You can hack the system and remove that, but I don't think that the palette system in website is tailored to be used with 5 colors. If you don't trust enough the editor of the website and you decide that probably that guy should not change the colors, maybe he should not have editor access at all. I'm not sure if I'm answering the question, but you can't restrict that.
Another question, should we use default in our custom modules?
Yeah, this is an interesting question. Indeed, I did that in my demo. You're not forced to, as long as you are super sure that you will never customize this variable in the future. But it's possible, maybe, I mean, it depends by the task, by the project, but it may be possible that your clients ask you to add another level of customization. So in that case, you may want to override your own variables. Who knows? So it's already a good practice to use default, to add the default flag.
Can we use dynamic variables? For example, create a new field with color ID and then use it in your... I can read the,
Yep.
the rest. In our CSS bundle.
Okay, so dynamic variables and no, we can't. I know that website does that. The website team with some developer black magic. I am not able to explain you. So it's technically feasible, but I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for you how to do that. It's quite tricky though. I'm wondering why you need that beside. I mean, it's pretty clear why you need that in an editor, but I'm wondering why you need that in the default code base. It's interesting.
Another question. Would the URL of the slides be in the YouTube description? Do you know that?
Okay. I didn't saw the camera. Okay. Yeah, I will add the slide. Okay, in the pull request. I will probably remove the one about my mom, but for the rest, yes. Okay.
Could you put your code on GitHub or somewhere so that it can be used as an example?
Okay, let's look at that. I will remove from my demo code things that are unnecessary, that were just made for the presentation, let's say, and we remove also the font because again they are relying on the fonts that are installed in my system. But then I will add in the description of the YouTube video link to a branch, something that you can test.
Would there be a mix-in for Adobe fonts? Adobe fonts?
No, I don't think so. As far as I know, in order to use Adobe fonts, you have to buy a license, and this is something we don't handle natively in Odoo because we don't have this need. Actually, we removed all the fonts we were using in the system. We moved to system fonts. So basically, we use the fonts that are already installed in the PC of the end user.
And we got no more questions.
Okay, thank you so much. There is a question there.
Sorry, I had the URL, but you can repeat the question out again. When do you replace font or Sophia for?
Okay, so the question is when do we replace, we remove font-heavy zone? Version 4. There is no specific roadmap yet for that. Currently, we have two fonts library in Odoo. There is the Fontavism one, and there is also an Odoo one that we created to cover specific user case. But there is no plan to move to Fontavism next version. Indeed, the reason is about licensing. It's just that we have also a community version, so we don't want to force people to buy a license in order to use Odoo, and this is more or less. Yeah. But I do agree that is weird. And, this is a fight we are taking. We'll let you know. Okay, so if there are no other questions. Okay, thank you so much. Thanks again.